Hey, welcome back. It's due time for another monthly update on the development of my desktop environment. I'm making a desktop environment with Electron. That's not going to be the final stack, but using Electron allows me to quickly prototype ideas, and so that's kind of like the reason behind it. And I'm mostly a web developer. Um, I'm not really a systems programmer, so that also helps a lot. Having said that, though, let me show you what I did this month because there's a lot of interesting things to show you. So, now this might be new to you, especially if you're a web developer or not really someone that's into Linux or Rising or window managers or stuff like that. Well, let me just give you like a quick overview, I guess, of the tools I'm using here. So, last video, we were looking at the Mac OS version. So, one sec, because my phone is covering my dog, and so I'll just do it from here. I want to open a new window, and I want to open this one here, and let's do run Mac, and I think I'm gonna get some bugs. But anyways, yeah, this is a Mac application, right? And you know, depending on where you came from, you might have seen this from my other videos or from a video I submitted to Reddit. And so here we have, you know, this is a web view here. So if I do google.com, we now have this thing here. I don't know why on Mac it's like, I don't know, like on the first few seconds of launching I get like this annoying lag. And funny enough, that doesn't happen on here, which is a smaller machine. And this, I think it's like an Electron version for Mac, because I didn't have this before on this version here. You know, this is the original prototype version. This was way faster for some reason. Yeah, so I don't know what's happening there. Anyways, so this month I added a web view applet. It's a very simple one. If we open it here, web view, it's way simple. It's way easier to understand what's happening here compared to the other version. Compared to this one here. So there's a lot of nice improvements there. This system shortcuts, that's not that's a global shortcut, and I'm gonna be changing these later to a different tool, something more like this. But anyways, so yeah, this is the Mac version. So it's just an Electron app, and you know we have these things here. And so this month I added this web view. Which, by the way, you can open the inspector and you can look at things here, which is pretty cool. That's something that I wanted for the other version, and now I have it, and it's really cool to have it here. And what else? Yeah, I fixed a lot of bugs. So there was a very annoying bug when you reach the end of your room, because you do have a defined size for it. You would essentially get this very annoying bug where it would kind of like teleport to a random, like to an offset, and that took me a long time to fix, but now it's fixed. Now I think most, if not all, edge cases around around panning and zooming are fixed. And yeah, so now let me close this let me close this Mac version here, and let me show you the new thing. So I have been mostly working on this window manager prototype, and I think I mentioned that on my previous videos. And basically, and now, if I do start X, we're going to open up this here. Now, if you don't know what Camo is, it's basically an emulator to run Linux in this case. So I'm running a Linux. I'm running the Debian, so I can actually show you here. This is a terminal, and if I do neo fetch, that's it. I'm running the Debian, and it's a small machine, and yeah, and it's running on like the first thing. And not only that, but I have a window manager backend written in C, and I'll show you that in a moment. But basically, I can do, I can just get windows here to show. Now this is just a terminal, and let me tell you right now that it's buggy. Like, it's not usable, but it works, and I have been learning a ton about how window managers work and like all of the different APIs and shit. So if I can open up other programs like Xlog, and you use this via the mouse, whatever. Now sometimes it does, like right now I've got this problem, which I'll quickly mention. There's this issue that I'm working with, and I'm using a single Linux socket for sending like everything basically to Electron, which is not ideal because I'm sending like the whole pixel buffers for every window through that, and also like this the events for the window manager. So it's it is not ideal. It's one event blocks each other. It's a fucking mess. It's horrible. But that was just kind of like for me to illustrate the point, and to also just get started basically. As I said, I'm not a systems programmer, so I'm learning a ton of things. Yeah, I posted a video earlier on Reddit, and some people ask like, "Oh, why are you using XOR?" Or I don't know if it's called XOR, XOR. It's also called X11 or X. That's essentially the I would call it the it's a display server, but it's like the backend for rendering windows. So essentially, each program that wants to render a window, it's gonna tell the server, "Hey, I want to put a window on the screen," and then the server's like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool. I'll like give me all this metadata and the pixels and all this, and I'll just put them there." And then there's another component that's called the compositor, which takes those pixels and does some alterations, and then renders a final texture. I mean, I think I oversimplified it, but that's kind of like generally how that works. And so people on Reddit said like, "Hey, why are you using X11?" Because X11 is like from 1980, and there's something new which is called one sec. It is called Wayland. And Wayland, and this is in Spanish because I'm not signed in. But yeah, Wayland is new, and everyone is migrating to Wayland. And there's a very cool project which I always bring up, which is called Greenfield. Greenfield compositor, let's say. Compositor. And that should be here. Yes. So ideally, it should be doing something like this, to be honest. Which I try to, but I ran into some issues, and honestly, like sometimes I just like to do things by hand when I don't understand them, when I don't understand existing tools, and so that's mainly the reason why I chose to use X11, because I thought, okay, LLMs are probably gonna be way more familiar with X11, and it's probably just gonna be like easier, like if I don't know anything, and so that's kind of the reason why. But there shouldn't be any problem because the basis is the same for this. The basis is I need window buffers, and I need a way to send input to the window buffers. Now, if I'm gonna close it now. So you might be wondering, like, how am I sending input to this window? If this is Electron, am I forwarding inputs? The answer is no. I am not, and I tried, but that obviously didn't work, which wasn't too obvious for me. Mainly because of focus management, because this Electron instance is it's basically, it's a window itself. I mean, the root window from X11 is also a window, but that's handled differently, I guess. And so, yeah, this is a window. So a lot of weird things are windows. So for example, if I click on here, this is a context menu. That's a window. If I hover here, there's a tooltip. That's a window, and I had to manually handle those. Like, those are a special type of windows, and on my main.c here, I had to do some checks there to see, okay, what are my special type of windows. And I'm pretty sure there might be more. There might be other edge cases, because I've seen some instances where there's some weird stuff happening. Like if I Google food, well, that's disgusting. Anyway, like, and if I drag this, looks like I'm not getting it. I don't know why I might not be getting it anymore. But I noticed that there's like a drag and drop interface, right? And I was getting, oh, there you go. So you see, oops, I might have to get that call. I can't answer that call right now. Anyway, so this is a window, right? And it's a special type of window, but I'm not handling it, so that's a problem. So I kind of lost track of what I was saying. But yeah, okay, yeah. So input. How are we handling input? So the way that I'm handling input is, well, the keyboard is being done like by default. Like, X11 has an active window. There's a window that receives all input. Right now it's this window, and so all keyboard input is going to go to it. The moment I focus on a different window, that one is going to get input. So I'm not doing anything special there. What else? For the mouse, this one was very tricky, or at least in my head, because when you move it like this, you're moving an element in HTML. You're moving a DOM element. So how the heck am I gonna convert that to like real input? And the answer is, well, there's a hidden invisible window right now. So like when I focus on this window, there's actually an overlay here, invisible overlay that is getting that input. So for example, if I make a sticky note, this one's gonna get input, and if I click on it, well, it's gonna prioritize it because it's on top of this one. If I click here, well, I get this, but if I click here, this is not gonna select the sticky note as you would think. It's gonna pass through it and actually select this one. And that's a bug that I need to fix, because it has this window, right, that's on top, that's gonna get all that. I can fix this in a few ways, but the way that I want to fix it is, I think I'll just have other invisible windows that are dummy windows, that represent the other elements in the canvas, right? So, or yeah. And I'm not gonna have one for each. I'm gonna do some kind of like mask or something, so that if you click on that mask, so the mask would be kind of like this shape. That's like the like this surrounding shape of of this window here. Like if you click on here, then it would then forward that focus to this window. And so, you know, like it would get you out of focus of this here, and you would not be getting that input. And I think that's probably the best way to handle that with this setup that I have right now. So that's basically how it works. Now, how am I rendering the pixels? That's also pretty shitty. As I mentioned, I'm using a single WebSocket to send the changes, and I'm using the X to get the window updates. So damage as in the window pixels get damaged because they change or something like that. It's kind of funny naming from the 80s, I guess. And so whenever there's a change, we get we get an event on our app view here, and we just update that. And we use that same event for getting the dimensions of this thing, because it's kind of like correlated, right? But I think that also, like, I think the events should be handled separately so that we don't have weird bugs. Like, you know, like when I was resizing, like, sure, it looks cool, it looks good here, but then if I resize it, you know, like if that happens right before that event, it's not gonna happen, and stuff like that. So I need to definitely fix that, and so I've been exploring ways of doing that. Ideally, also another issue is that I'm using a canvas. It's just a regular 2D context canvas. It's not WebGL or anything, which is not really an issue. But the issue is that you know, it's a separate canvas each window, and I don't like that idea as much. And so instead of that, I think there's a few ideas that I have. One of them, which seems like the most reasonable one in terms of performance and stuff, is to use a video element instead and set up a video stream, using kind of like doing something like GStreamer. And essentially, I'm using WebRTC. If you're not familiar with WebRTC for whatever reason, yeah, it's just a protocol for real-time communication. That's what we use in the web for video calls, you know, Google Meet, or for, you know, like YouTube live streams and stuff. That's essentially it. What else? Yeah, let me close this. Okay. Yeah, if I use that, I think it's gonna be less work on the JavaScript side of things, because it's gonna be handled by the browser, right? Like there's not gonna be a JavaScript function that runs on a loop every time we need an update, which is what's currently happening. We're calling a JavaScript function to put pixels on the canvas. That's bad. So using the video element, that's gonna be handled by the browser, so there's not gonna be blocking JavaScript for it, and I think that's the ideal solution. I could also have like a single buffer that renders as layer, but then does some like other fancy shit. But I am not too, kind of like the same way that I'm rendering the background with WebGL. You know, this image here is actually WebGL, so the idea is that you could use shaders for the background. I could do the same thing for a foreground that kind of like have masks for all the elements that are there, and then you kind of like put a buffer with masking. That could work actually. It could be cool. It could be even more performant potentially, but it also seems like a pain and complicated. And I don't know if I want to do that, to be honest. I might have to do that, so I guess we'll see. But yeah, that's kind of like the current situation. And so you can see here that I was chatting here to see some ideas and like learn about APIs. um, to do that. And so I'm gonna be experimenting with that later on this month. And what else? Yeah, I mean that's basically what I did for this month. I'm pretty happy, anyways, even though it's not ideal. It's not. I mean, I still can't use this for my own. You know, like I wouldn't do this on a real Linux system. not right now the way it is, for sure. But it is, I think, pretty cool. And you know, like something that I was like one of the main reasons why this is a canvas and like why I'm going through all this trouble is not just for the zooming. It's not just for adding decorations with JavaScript like this one, you know, because this is the window decoration here is just a div, right? And then this is a button. Like that's not the reason why I'm using this. It's because I can prototype with different workflow ideas. That's really why. And because for some simple apps like this one, I don't need to do a full native app. It's just a sticky note, and it can just be here, and nobody gives a shit. And I kind of like that. I like that for quick applets, like little things, you know. Like, come on, it's just a sticky note. It's just a thing. And it's not a program, a full program. And I don't know, I like to entertain that idea and see kind of like what happens there. I expand more on the details on my first, one of my first videos. But yeah, like, you know, this is a launcher which I haven't yet implemented. You know, here I have this other launcher tool here. Let's close it. And you know, like we have this chat here. You know, those are some cool ideas that are, for me, are easier to implement with JavaScript than they would be if I would do that in C. But that's because that's my stack, right? And I think there's a lot of people like me. And also, like, yeah, it's just easier to, like, use AI to do those type of things, too. And I don't know. I'm experimenting. I wouldn't say that the goal is to always have a web stack for rendering this, no. But this is what's currently allowing me to prototype quickly. And so, yeah, that's kind of like the direction that I'm moving. And another cool thing, for example, I mean, you know, like custom workflows, like, would allow you to do something cool. Like in this case that I'm running Linux here, you know, I decide what I want to do with what happens when you do Alt-Tab. Right now, nothing happens. Nothing happens when I do Alt-Tab. But, you know, I could set it up in a way where if I do Alt-Tab, then it could be, you know, it could move me. For example, if I separate this a little bit more, you know, Alt-Tab could be, one sec, let me adjust here. Alt-Tab could be something like, okay, you know, I'm here, boom, I hit Alt-Tab, and then we fly here. I hit Alt-Tab, and then, oh, sorry. And then I fly here again. You know, Alt-Tabbing. What if you have another command, like Alt-Escape or whatever? And what does that do? Oh, it just zooms you out to see kind of like an expose, kind of like on Mac, right? Like this. But it just zooms out. It just zooms out, and then you click, and then boom, you zoom in, you zoom back in. You know, you could implement something like that. It doesn't mean that you have to zoom in and zoom out to move around. You could just disable zooming. You could even just disable the canvas. You know, you could have a fixed desktop size with this stack with this configuration for desktop environment. And that would still be easier to do with this setup for me, because I would be like, well, you could even do it like per workspace. You know, you could have a workspace where you say, you know what, I don't want a canvas for this workspace because it doesn't work. I'm gonna be working on Figma or whatever, or I'm gonna be working on some other thing that requires you to zoom in and out, and so zooming in and zooming out, and then you like multiple zooms. That would be kind of weird. Like if I open Devlog right here, for example, right? Like this is a whiteboard. So if I go here, you know, and if I draw, it's gonna be slow because I mean obviously I'm on Camo. Although it shouldn't, like that should work. I don't know what's up with the input events there. But anyways, like this works on the Mac version. I'm losing focus. But yeah, like zooming in, like for example here I'm zooming in, but like okay, I just want to zoom in here, and then it's like, what? Like, you know, it's that's kind of like, not ideal. I actually don't really mind it. Like I've tried it on here, and that's not too bad because well, this is not an emulator, and so oh wait, there's a bug there. There's a bug there. This is like super funny. But anyways, you know, you can do the drum keys, and you know, you can move around, and like I actually don't find it as conflicting. But I mean, if you wanted to not have that, you could also just do that. Like it could be just a toggle, and the source code for that toggle wouldn't be that complicated. Or that's the idea. That's the setup that I'm trying to work with. I'm not using React or anything like that. I'm trying to make it as minimal as possible, as vanilla as possible. And so I like that way of working here to try different ideas. And what else? Yeah, so you would be able to define different workflows. Or for example, you know, you could be able to like download a you know, like a .own package. What is it now? Or OMS, or because it's own workspace, or own W, or whatever, or just .own, right? So like, and then this is kind of like some workspace. And you can make one of those yourself, or you can download one from the internet or whatever. Someone made that for you from work or from your friend. And it's kind of like a website, but it's a space, and you know that has some given configuration because you can isolate workspaces because it's just a window, a sandboxed browser window, right? And so yeah, you can also limit the amount of permissions that you have on it. I don't know, like I feel like it brings interesting ideas. It's not the best stack for sure, using Electron. But yeah, you know, you can download that. You can just download a package for an applet, an own applet or whatever, right? And then that's just a piece of code that download like, oh, you want stickies? Okay, well, you know, it's just like stickies. And that's like, I don't know, 500 lines of code there. It's just like 2 files or whatever, right? And some icons maybe, or 0 icons, you know? And then you can also just modify it because it's just JavaScript. So you can just even ask like ChatGPT or whatever and be like, hey, I don't like the way, I just want like pink stickies, or I want to change the font, and you can just do that very easily, you know? And so that's what I'm aiming for, a very customizable setup that's like with a little friction. And yeah, I just want to make that customization part fun. And right now, the hardest part for sure is getting this right. But I've made a lot of progress just by getting this. To be honest, I mean, like, what the heck? It's not great, but holy shit! And if you want to see a weird bug, I have no idea why these are so fucking buggy. Like, I don't know why this renders on the left here. And I don't know, yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just so weird. And then you cannot close it. Never. It's impossible to close. crash or something. I don't know. Like I'm trying to open new windows, but it's just so fucked up. It's just so buggy right now. Like I'm not able to add any new windows. Now I can't. Like yeah. But yeah. That's it for this update. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next month with some updates. I might post some updates on Reddit or Twitter or whatever. Depends on what I do. So I'll see you later.